One Soccer Direct with Gareth Wheeler, Alexander Gange-Ruzic, and Adam Jenkins after a busy weekend in football from across the globe, both on the pitch and off the pitch. And let's start with some of the big news, Gareth, from off the pitch. It was Matt Hughes with The Guardian who was first to break the reporting that FIFA and CONCACAF and UEFA are considering combining their nations leagues, which could see all 96 nations play in a new competition together. There's obviously a lot of meat on that bone. The anticipated start date, if everything was approved, would be the fall of 2028. Gareth, do you think this 96-team mega nations league could work?
I do think it could work. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I think that this is all part of the politicking, the posturing to get Infantino out. CONCACAF and UEFA have been the two loudest federations in terms of pushing back against Infantino and his plans to stay on, I guess, for the long term in his role as FIFA president. And I just think that this is about applying pressure more so than anything else. If this did go forward, then yeah, I think it's intriguing. If you're going to have Nations League to begin with, you might as well bring together big countries. What's in it for UEFA? More access, more availability, more monetary reward by playing in the North American market. What's in it for CONCACAF? The big nations in CONCACAF having the opportunity to play against bigger European nations on a regular basis. In recent years, we've seen the limitations that the Nations League actually has on booking friendlies against, a limited number of nations. Canada, we've seen them really be relegated to playing some South American teams and teams within their own region. Very difficult to fit within your calendar, UEFA nations. And if you can bring UEFA nations into the fold, where Canada can play the likes of bigger, more popular, I guess, and more economically vibrant nations across Europe, I think that that's something that's worth investigating as well. I mean, Canadians got geeked up for when Canada played Romania and Wales. I can only imagine what things would look like when you're playing against the likes of France and England and Spain or Croatia or whoever. So, yeah, I do think it can work, but I think we're a long way away. I just think this is part of the process of trying to put the pressure that's required to push Infantino out.
Well, that's it. Absolutely. It's all about the pressure. It's all about, the here and now. I don't know how seriously they are looking at what's coming down the road in terms of actually making this work. But you can see there's some benefits. Obviously, the big question for me would be, what are the top 10, 12 European nations saying and thinking about this? Because in their eyes, I don't know how open they might be to some of the travel and, some of the opposition that this might open up. But we do forget that UEFA is a pretty big confederation, yes. Almost 50 teams. There's a lot of middling teams that with how competitive it is at the top, they might not sniff a World Cup. For them, even just making the Euros is a big achievement every cycle. They would obviously benefit from playing more in different games and having a more robust Nations League. We think about some of the minnows too of UEFA who could benefit from playing some of the Caribbean islands and those nations in CONCACAF and what could come on that regard. So it is interesting to me that if you actually look at it in the grand scheme, 80 to 85 of the 96 national teams in this would actually benefit a lot footballing wise on the field from such, combining the two confederations together for Nations League. It's really the teams at the top that I'd be curious to see their reaction. Obviously, there's also travel logistics that do stand out to me. And that's where I think things would get interesting. Is it an even CONCACAF UEFA split? Are you just going on rankings and then maybe at the top it's a little more UEFA heavy and then at the bottom it's more CONCACAF heavy? I think that could have some challenges because if you're in a group that's a little more CONCACAF heavy and you're an Eastern European team, you're probably a bit angry, and vice versa if you're in the top level Nations League and there's travel involved. But in terms of on the pitch, there'd be a lot of benefits if they could work out those kinks and find a way to make things balance and work in a schedule. Because like Wheels mentioned, those lack of inter-confederation games between World Cups has become a bit of an issue with this kind of growth and rise of Nations League across the different confederations.
Well, Gareth, we both know that Alex is my globalist hero. He is one for the worlds. But there were some things that came out non-football related this weekend that have me very much on Team Canada with my elbows up. And I want to know what this means for Canada. What could this do for this program to have access to the litany of heavyweights you listed, including Italy, who didn't make the cut, but I don't know if they still count as a heavyweight, but let's not spiral into that conversation. What could this access consistently to big top 10, top 20 teams in the world help do for Canada's men's national team?
I just think that a lot of Canadian soccer fans are familiar with European domestic leagues. That's typically what we have more access to, and that's where the biggest stars of the game play. So I think from an economic perspective, this puts Canada soccer potentially in a different realm. It will increase the rights and the valuation of them in terms of what sponsors look at when the national team plays. And I think that more so than anything else, Canadians, I just think that this is Victor Montagliani putting his stake in the ground, saying, you know what? Canada is on the rise. CONCACAF has done a good job steadying the ship through a real difficult era before he took over, and they're looking to grow and build. And if Infantino is going to stand in the way of that, then there are ready-made alternatives. So I also think it provides Canadian players with more of a window to perform in front of potentially more European audiences who might not be familiar with a lot of Canadian players and names and the quality that we're producing as well. So look, I think that it's quite clear that this sort of relationship would be highly beneficial for everyone involved in Canadian soccer. And I don't worry about travel too much because more and more these Canadian players are with their club teams are based in Europe and probably not doing, cross-Atlantic flights on a regular and then going to make 5 and 6 hour flights to various places across CONCACAF. I mean, travel's travel. And obviously you need to weigh in the players' considerations and what they want in this process. But if FIFA and the way that they're pushing these players in the direction right now isn't satiating their needs and requirements, perhaps a new entity is something that we'll see as well. And remember, we're already seeing a little bit of a crossover in terms of Gold Cups, Copa Americas, Canada playing with it outside their region in significant competitions as well. But I think that the European market is the most financially beneficial one, both for the players, the association, and partners alike. So I think that this is something that is realistic just in terms of where that push may be if Infantino doesn't comply and see his way out of his role within FIFA.
Well, he is certainly the loudest figure in the room when he is supposed to be and when he's not supposed to be, Gianni Infantino. We had another report that Victor Montagliani, the aforementioned president of CONCACAF, requested that he stay away from a youth tournament to stop or to prevent a distraction from the competition. There is a lot of politicking. There's a lot of jabs being traded throughout the top footballing leadership in the world. But Alex, what's been missing for a good chunk of this story is the players. And that seems to have changed recently with Sky News Sports' Rob Harris putting out a statement that he received from some of the players. I'll read parts of it. Between us, we have played on the greatest sports stages and worn our national shirts with pride, but we know that none of our achievements would be possible without the fans. We share the exact same concerns as the millions of fans around the world. It goes on, and you can find that on X. Obviously, Alex, this is messy, but there was a direct call out at the end there for change. What do you make of this statement, of this reporting that the players are starting to become increasingly frustrated with the direction of the FIFA footballing leadership at the very top, and if this might have any impact at all?
Well, this stands out to me because a hallmark of the Infantino tenure has been this way that he's kind of cozied up to various legends of the game and how he's really made them an ever-presence. We saw it constantly in the broadcast when Infantino was shown. Who is he surrounded by? Legends that were usually associated with the game or whatnot within the FIFA council, within the FIFA ecosystem. He's tried to make as much room as possible to allow these legends of the game. For him, it's been a bit of a form of soft power, kind of associating him with these top players so that they see Infantino with them and feel maybe a bit of confidence about his relationship to the game. So if any of the significant legends were able to turn, of course, for now we've seen that a decent amount of names, Lucy Bronze, Michael Sylvestre were some of the names that were thrown out. We haven't maybe seen some of the bigger names that Infantino is associating himself with. But if this is a sign that amongst that group of legends that there is discontent, it's just another brick. It's another brick that's falling, that's crumbling for Infantino. So for me, it was actually quite significant, even though the statement itself, it's nothing new. They're applying pressure, but when you're going after people that are close to Infantino, I think that stands out, because obviously we're not going to see the US turn against him at this stage. We're not going to see some of those other closer, but when his VPs, when these legends, when UEFA is going against him, it's just another brick that stacks up, and eventually, if things continue, right, it's step-by-step process.
Yeah, the statement was released courtesy of the FIFA's Players Voice panel, and that's the one thing that's been missing in this entire equation is the players' voice. Not just the players' voice, what the fans want as well. They're both equally stakeholders in the game and what they think matters. Like, from a player's perspective, or from a fan's perspective in the last World Cup, affordability, access to tickets, integrity of the game, like, none of these things have been taken into consideration in the pursuit of, private equity investment, further capitalization of various markets, spreading the World Cup as thin as it can be in order to potentially make more. Who does this suit? It's suited Gianni Infantino more so than anyone else. And in particular, some smaller nations that are looking to capitalize and get more in a footballing world, which is really being predicated on greed more so than proper governance. This is what's required. I love how the players are now speaking out. They're the ones that are affected the most by any decision that is made. They're being spread more and more thin by the year. It's happening before our eyes. They don't want to be caught up in this nonsense. They want the game to move forward in a way that they can go out and focus on playing, where the game's held to the highest standards and governance is straightforward, where there isn't deals being made behind closed doors in the dark of the night with very little transparency of who's doing what and why. So this is what's required. I'm happy this has happened, and I look forward to seeing more voices in the footballing world come out and stand up for the game, putting the game first, more so than anything else. Victor Montagliani says this all the time. It's all about football first. That needs to be practiced, not just preached at this point.